Welcome to Power Hour, presented by Circle B Diecast. I'm your host, Eric Estepp, joined by the other host of Power Hour, NASCAR driver Brennan Poole. Brennan, welcome to the show, episode 6. How you doing?
I'm good. Episode 6. That's my number, baby.
Hey, I didn't realize.
Man.
Look
episode
at that.
6. It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a fire jam.
I'm excited. This is going to be great. The show, of course, is sponsored by Circle B Diecast, and fans of Out of the Groove Power Hour can use code OOTG for free shipping on orders over $30. Brennan, I'm excited because just a couple days ago, a very exciting box arrived at my front door. I picked this up recently. Well, I say recently. I pre-ordered it quite a while ago, but now Eric Jones Southern 500 Win Diecast. Yeah, it's the first next-gen 124 scale car I have in my collection. I'm very impressed. I love the confetti and appreciate Circle B Diecast delivering this thing neatly to my front door. Brennan, what diecast do you have to show off? What's one of your favorites in your collection that you want to talk about this week?
Mine is also a race winner.
Hey.
And it's a raced version. It doesn't have the confetti on it, but this is Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s number 3 victory car from Daytona, and it's raced.
That's
so it's got
awesome.
like all the rubber all over it, and some of the, you can see where he didn't really touch anybody, but it's got the rubber on it. I always thought this car was cool. Plus, he could pull out of the draft and pass everybody with no help. It was insane. Junior, if you're watching this, let's have a conversation about how that was the way that it was.
That's an awesome car, though. It's an awesome paint scheme. I think we brought two pretty big winners. Blast from the Past, something real new school. We appreciate Circle B Diecast, though, sponsoring the show. Again, use code OOTG for free shipping on orders over $30. Brennan, there's a lot going on in the NASCAR world. The last time we talked on this show a few weeks ago, it was Chicago street course. That was the talk of the town. But now, I know we just wrapped up Pocono. How was your weekend? You had a bright and beautiful car.
Okay, yeah. Okay, the members first, people for starters. Members first bank. They're awesome. But dude, so Mike Wilson, who's the CEO, who's a good buddy of mine, he did everyone had to see the driver start your engines, right? He that's the best one since Kevin James did it. But we teed him up because we kind of showed him the Kevin James version before, like, he went and did it, and we were like, you got to do this, like, you got to like really go for it. And dude, he went for it. He was like, start your. And like, if you haven't seen it, like, you've got to check it out, or maybe we can clip it.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find a clip of it because it's worth hearing.
I have it. I'll have to send it.
Send it to me. We'll insert it. We'll insert it right here.
Drivers, start your engines!
So shout out Mike Wilson for the driver start your engines. But yeah, I thought Pocono was a wild and crazy race, and there was a lot of action on Saturday with crashes. Our strategy didn't pan out, so we didn't run that good. So we'll skip over that. And then, people were fighting on pit lane in the Cup race.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Denny Hamlin was saying he didn't hit people when he did, and now people on Twitter and everywhere else are saying he didn't touch them, but he did touch them.
Yeah,
so I don't know. Who knows?
It was slight, yeah. Good drama, good controversy after Pocono. Helps keep these summer months. I remember when the summer months used to be like dry, like, no disrespect to these tracks, but you'd go to Pocono, and then you'd go to New Hampshire, Sonoma, then back to Pocono. And I was just like you'd have Daytona sandwiched there in the middle over July 4th. And that was like the saving grace of the summer. But now, I think New Hampshire was a good race. Sonoma was interesting. Pocono, the crowd was fantastic. Pocono slapped. Pocono, second year in a row, has given us plenty to talk about and to react to as fans. So, the summer has been hot, both on the track, but also off the track, Brennan. I want to talk about NASCAR free agency. As the summer is heated up, everyone's talking about free agency. And this may be kind of an awkward conversation with you because I know you're kind of in the middle of it. Like, you are a NASCAR driver who's, you're with a team currently, but you've driven for 3 different teams this year in NASCAR at some point or another. So I know you're a guy who's always looking for that next opportunity as well. So this past week, Justin Haley kind of shockingly announced that he would be, leaving Colleague, not signing a new deal with Colleague Racing, and instead would drive for Rick Ware Racing in the Cup Series. He signed a multi-year deal. I guess, first off, Brennan, what's your reaction to that kind of a move? How does that affect a driver in your position? But also, how does a lot of folks look at Rick Ware Racing historically is kind of the butt of the joke, but with the next gen and the changes they've made the last couple of years, Rick Ware Racing is more competitive than they've historically been. How has the next gen car changed the perception of what a good ride is?
Well, I think, definitely the next gen's made a lot of changes, but I also want to say, I've driven the RWR cars this year, and their alliance with RFK and the things that Rick, and the things that Robbie Benton, the team president, Tommy Baldwin, the competition director, the things that they're doing. I mean, they're running that team as if it's a big team, and they're headed into that direction of putting all the focus in on performance. They want to run well. I mean, that Rick wants to be competitive. He wants to run up front. He wants to be able to battle for race wins. That's the goal. And I think the next gen has created the opportunity for a lot of these teams that have struggled and fought in the back to make a charge to put themselves in the mix. And I think Justin Haley probably sees that. And I think I think it's a good place to be. I would love to I'd love to be his teammate next year. I'll just say that openly. I know I'm going to get a few more opportunities this year to drive for Rick on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to that and trying to make the most of those opportunities. But yeah, I think all the stuff that they've done within that team and the time I've had there this year already has made me, it's made me really excited to just be a part of that program. And their cars those cars come out of RFK. Their shop is there on the ground, so they work really closely with them. And I know the effort is to continue to grow that alliance. And I think I really believe that RWR will be even better next year than they were this year. So I'm excited for them to see what they're able to accomplish. I think Rick's done a great job with hiring some great people to be around him. Robbie Benton, who is the team president, was at Penske when Logano won the championship a few years ago. So he's got really great people in place. And then of course the alliance and being able to get that support and help and all that stuff is huge. And shoot, man, I mean, I know Cole Custer had a hard go at it at New Hampshire, but man, he was running 22nd.
Yeah.
And when I drove it at Kansas, I ran inside the top 25, the whole race till we got caught up in an incident at the end. So
you're top 25 at Dover, right?
Yeah, I ran inside the top 25 and thanks, Ross. Just giving you a hard time.
The
Ross.
meme never dies.
I know. But yeah, so like I really think that's a good move. I think it is.
Do you think I mean, you talked a little bit about their alliance with Rick Ware Racing, specifically talking about Rick Ware, but also just teams in general. How important are technical alliances these days now that the next gen is virtually, it's a spec car? So how important are those types of alliances?
Well, the big teams are still the big teams, and they still have a lot of good engineers on their program that are finding all those little things that add up to the raw speed. And, that alliance is incredibly, incredibly helpful. And you look at, I know it's the new car, but I mean, still, I think you have to have that support system with your team if you're not already one of the big teams. So if you look at it, a lot of the teams that do run well, some of the midfield teams, if you will, they all have those alliances. And there's every once in a while, man, one of those cars is in the hunt to win races, whether it's Colleague or the 47 with Stenhouse. He's been having a heck of the second half of the season. He's like running in the top 10 every week. Those teams that have those alliances certainly help them have more speed. I mean, it's just it's a big help all around. So I think it's very, very important to have it if your goal is to be competitive.
You can hear, I don't know if you can hear, there's a fire truck going by, so I was trying to mute my microphone for a second, but
I can barely hear it.
Yeah,
so I think you're good.
Apologies to the listeners at home. That's not happening in your world. That's happening in my world right now. What was I going to say? Justin Haley. You said you like this move for Justin Haley. Good move for Rick Ware, all that stuff. I agree. I think Justin Haley, 4 years ago, leaving Colleague, who I guess was also a very new team at the time, but leaving Colleague for Rick Ware would have been a total head scratcher. But now, at the very least, obviously they have the potential now to build something great over the next few years. But at the very least, Justin Haley was able to take control of his own future. We talk all the time about how it's a numbers game as much as anything in NASCAR these days. And I don't know that Justin Haley brings much sponsorship. I think that was probably the holdup at Colleague, why those negotiations seemed to kind of take weeks and month after month. It was like, yeah, we'd like to bring Haley back, but money, making the numbers work. And he could have just waited and waited on that deal for months. And then last minute, they bring someone else in at Colleague, and Haley would have been out of luck and had to scramble. But him making this decision now to pursue a team that actively recruited him, I think that's great for a young driver like that. You get some job security for the next couple of years, and you're in control of your own fate, your own destiny. That's pretty great. But I guess on that note, Brennan, we talk all the time again about how much these teams demand, or at least ask for. Maybe demand's a strong word. They sometimes settle for less, for sure. But how much teams ask for in terms of sponsorship from drivers. How much is that affecting silly season or free agency this year in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it always plays a role every year, minus like a few guys at the very, very top of the sport. But even then, it can still affect those guys like we saw with Kyle Busch.
Sure.
So, I mean, no matter what, I think you still have to have support. I mean, the teams are constantly looking for funding, just like all the drivers in the sport are constantly looking for funding too. So I think it definitely is a factor. And the more of it you have, the better situation you can be in. But it also depends on the driver too. There are some drivers that a team may be wanting to get, that they may be willing to take less funding for, or maybe
Sure.
collectively as a group make an effort to find it together, and what that looks like. I mean, there's a lot of different variables that come into play on a deal happening. But I think for the most part, if you want to be safe, I mean, you got to be walking around with a pretty good partner, or at least a couple of pretty good partners. And it's easy to follow it when you see other drivers move from team to team to team, and they like have the same partners from team to team to team to team. Like
Yeah.
you can, you kind of can
Put two and two
follow it.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of big drivers, whether it was Kevin Harvick or Martin Truex Jr. or, I mean, there's been more than that have you've seen they drive for somebody, and the next year they move, and it's like the same partners are with them. And
Sure.
having that support means a lot. And as a driver, it gives you a lot more control over your destiny too. So, but I mean, I like the move for Justin. I like the move for RWR. I like, I'm inside of RWR a little bit, but I see the things that in the direction they're headed in. I like that direction they're going in. I think they're a lot closer, I think, than people realize to being a serious threat every week. They're close. So, they're right there. And so, that their time is coming. So I mean, we'll see what happens. I think that this is the first domino to fall. I think there's going to be a lot more. And I think this off season, there's going to be a lot of shakeups, and people are going to be like, whoa, wow, this is crazy. I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point, but I think there's going to be a lot more movement in all the series, from even in Xfinity and trucks. I think there's going to be some big moves that people are going to be like, whoa, didn't see that coming.
There are a lot of rumors and reports out there, and we're going to ask Daniel Hemrick about this a little bit, which, by the way, I don't think I've said this yet. Daniel Hemrick is our guest today. He'll be joining us shortly. It's in the title of the episode, but I don't think I officially mentioned it. We'll introduce him in a few moments, but there are so many more variables this offseason, or this summer / going into the offseason, than in years past, with new TV contracts, media rights splits being negotiated, schedule changes with new markets, potentially international after what happened in Chicago. Like there's so many variables out there now that there's just more moving parts. And there's been reports Corey LaJoie, it sounds like, is finalizing a deal to stay at Spire, despite having maybe getting interest from larger teams, which makes everyone wonder, hey, what's Spire cooking up over there? We've seen reports from Adam Stern, Sports Business Journal, that charters are expected to go for over $30 million. Do you think that's high? A high estimation, Brennan? Is that like accurate? Is that even low? Like, it feels like charters these days you're just making up value at this point, but that's crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to the demand, really. But no, I mean, I think they're probably worth quite a bit more than 30 million as it stands right now today. I think that's probably a little low. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I look at the TV numbers. I really think the health of the sport right now is really good. I mean, we're selling out crowds. We're selling out campgrounds. I mean, Pocono didn't have a campground. I mean, they sold the campground out before they sold out the grandstands, and then they sold the grandstands out. But I mean, and that's happening on a regular basis. I mean, this is happening at multiple tracks, multiple weekends. Like everyone, it just seems like the sport is in a surge. The viewership is up. I mean, even when I see some of these numbers, that they're reporting on, like, oh, Pocono, it's the best, 2.8 million views. But I still remember a time, and maybe it's because it wasn't on cable, it was on, Fox Sports 1 or whatever it was on, where we were having 4 million people watch some of these races. I think that everything is headed in a positive direction as far as how things are working on the fan side of things. I think,
Yeah.
I'd still like to see some changes with the cup car. And I know there's a lot of other drivers talking about it too, just trying to make the racing better. Like, we're shifting at short tracks, for crying out loud. Like, there's just some stuff that we don't need to be doing, but I think NASCAR is aware of all that. And I think changes are coming. So, like, I really think right now, like, everything's going great for the fans, for the
Feels that way.
sponsors, for the sport. So I'm happy. I'm pretty happy with where everything's headed right now.
Yeah. Not to get back into the weeds of silly season, free agency. I've been using both terms now interchangeably, because I get comments in my videos that say they think silly season sounds too silly. This is serious. It's serious season. This is important. But with all the unknowns of, in your talks, and you obviously can't go into any super deep specifics, but in talks you've had with teams about next year and beyond, do they bring up the unknowns of the TV contract? Do they kind of know what to expect from TV, what they want from sponsors? Like, do you get the impression team owners and Cup, Xfinity, et cetera, know what to ask for? They know what to expect, or are they also kind of like are those unknowns going to slow free agency down this year?
I think it's a really good question. Like, I think that's a really, really good question.
Well,
I would
thank
say,
you.
like, Xfinity and trucks, I think all the team owners there pretty much know what to expect. I don't think much is going to change for them on purses and things like that. I know there was a talk of, like, streaming an Xfinity Series, but I think those talks have died out. I don't know. Some people are like, no, they're talking about it again. And I'm like, I think Xfinity should be on TV. I don't think it should be on a streaming service. I just think it should be on TV. It should be accessible to everyone at all times. Like, I just think racing they need to do everything in their power to keep it that way. But, I think as far as the TV deals go, I think the Cup guys, the top Cup owners, I think they still are not positive what's going to happen. I think there's hopes that it's going to be bigger and better, meaning more money for the teams. And I think there's hope that NASCAR I don't know if they are. I think this is just like, from their discussions, that they might open it up a little bit more than what it's been as far as sharing more money with the team. So I think there's some where the teams are kind of feeling that. And I think that's what's driving some of the price of these charters too, because it's a business. And if they are expecting, and this is all, people are trying to buy these charters before this new TV deal and this new stuff comes out. So, and as people buy in, the number just keeps climbing. But I think they're hoping, that the TV deal is going to be big, and it's going to end up being more money to the Cup team owners that have charters.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if and when, because like those agreements could be made any week now. I think everyone would hope. And so, I guess that's why it's, you hear LaJoy signing a multi-year deal, Haley signing a multi-year deal, but like Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, they don't have anything on paper for next year yet. They're still, I don't know. It's just, I can't tell yet if all that uncertainty is going to slow things down this summer going into the fall, or if it's going to speed things up, or if like everyone's waiting for the domino of the TV contract being signed to fall to really solidify things. But
if you're a guy like Denny Hamlin or Martin Truex Jr. and you have sponsorship money attached
that's true.
to you,
they're in their own category.
You might be waiting for that TV deal intentionally to fight for a bigger salary.
That's a good point.
They might be waiting intentionally for that, but
it's the NASCAR version of holding out. Like, maybe that is like Truex keeps saying, I got to come to a decision soon. I got to make a decision soon. And then he keeps pushing it out and out and out.
Yeah.
Then think about that.
But if you're a guy like Corey or Justin Haley, job security is the most important thing to
Good point.
them. They want to be racing and they want to know they're racing. So they're at a disadvantage on some of those negotiations because the teams know that. And
Yeah.
I know Spire wants Corey to stay, and I'm sure Corey's happy to stay there. Everything's going great for them and they're going in the right direction. But so he's probably wanting to be there. So him getting that opportunity, having that security, that I think that's a no-brainer for him. But if you're another guy where you're in a different position where you've got sponsors that are sticking with you and you're waiting to see how this is going to shake out, you it might be better for you to wait, because a guy like Denny Hamlin or Martin Truex, they have the ability to do that and still be fine.
It's all about leverage, and those are two guys
leverage.
that are championship contenders, big sponsors behind them. They have leverage that Justin Haley doesn't. I mean,
exactly.
That's what it comes down to. That's very interesting. That's a great point. I hadn't actually thought of that the last few weeks, but that is good stuff. Brennan, I guess we should bring in Daniel Hemric now. I know you guys are good friends. Daniel Hemric, obviously a NASCAR Xfinity Series champion. And I remember I had him on my show a few years ago when he was, I think, in the Cup Series, actually. And so I got to talk to him for about 10 minutes. I just got to learn a snippet about Daniel Hemric's background, the kind of person he is. But I remember, he won the Legends Million 12 or 13 years ago. That was a huge moment. I know you guys, your racing backgrounds, there's a lot of similarities there, a lot of crossover there. So I think this will be a really great conversation. Again, thank you to Circle B Diecast for sponsoring the show. Once again, I'll remind everyone watching and listening that you can use code OOTG for free shipping on orders over $30. So be sure to get out there and order your favorite drivers. 2022, 2023 diecast, pre-order any of their newer paint schemes on circlebdiecast.com. We really appreciate their support. Brennan, let's bring in Daniel Hemric. Let's get him in here on Power Hour. We are now joined by Daniel Hemric, NASCAR Xfinity Series driver. Daniel, thank you so much for being on Power Hour. How's it going, dude?
Hey, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Happy to be on here chatting with you.
Awesome stuff. And you brought the background. That is probably the most elite Zoom background we've seen so far. That's
Well, I'll tell you, there's always an interesting story about what you have propping up your background. I literally brought like a lawn chair and just put up in front of this little table here. We had a guest bedroom, but then we went and decided to have not only one kid, but have two kids. And our cool, like, little room with all of our helmets, all of our stuff turned into another place for another bedroom. So yeah, as I'm talking to you, I look this way. And where I used to have all this really cool backdrop for stuff like this is now a queen size bed for in-laws to stay at. So, hey, do what you got to do, and it's good to have something to be able to sit in front of.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, man. And Eric and I were just talking about it. Eric was there when you won in the championship in 2021, and he had like a front eye view of you guys door banging across the finish line.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how exciting it was. And of course, it was exciting for all of us to watch too. And obviously I've known you for so long, so I was pulling for you in that whole situation, and for you to win the race and get the championship. Man, that was it was awesome to see. I know like a lot of the fans probably don't know this, but you and I've watched you race Bandoleros. We raced legend cars together. I think I was 12 or 13. I think I'm a little bit older than you, but I don't remember. Barely. Am I like is it 1 year maybe?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about a year. I think you were just further along into it. So like you were naturally like a division ahead or whatever.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is you were just way better than I was.
At 12, maybe because I had the upper. I had already been doing it. Yeah, I just find it so interesting. Like, for me, like I look at the field and I see there's only 38 guys that race on Saturday and 36 guys that race on Sunday, and for us to have known each other when we're so young, and then to like still race against each other at like the highest form of motorsports in this country. Like, it's crazy, man. And there's a lot of us. I mean, we race with Chris Buescher and Ryan Blaney and a lot of those guys as well. But it's crazy to see those guys that made it and we're still racing together.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. That's what I try to elaborate to folks when they're talking about, like you talked about Blaney and some of the more high profile figures in our sport at the top level. It's crazy the amount of individuals that are still fortunate enough to call this their way of life, still doing this, that we kind of grew up week in and week out, whether it be local short tracks or whatnot, running around playing football in between, being on the racetrack or whatever you're doing, right? Like we all grew up as kids racing along the lines of, hey, we want to be able to do this one day. But the thought that percentage of kids you're racing with at that time, a lot of us are still, like I said, fortunate enough to do this at this level is pretty wild, man. So I know you and I recently got to catch up there at Chicago Street Course in our little driver lounge, which is really cool. They had set up for us. We're just talking about just how fortunate we are to continue to do this and continue to, keep taking a step up the ladder whenever folks get to the point where they can't do it and continue to show up. So it's funny how we've all kind of honed in on our craft, but we've done it since we were 10 years old battling each other.
For fans watching and listening who don't know as much about your racing background or beginnings, Daniel, I guess, where did you start racing? What form of racing would you say you really cut your teeth at that helped sort of propel your racing career to that next big step?
Yeah, obviously, growing up here in the Kannapolis, North Carolina area, it was the hub of racing. Now, obviously, that was not at the forefront of my mind as a kid. I thought as a kid that, hey, you want to go drive this thing called a go-kart? Yeah, sure. Let's go do it. So off the Concord Motorsports Park, as it was called, I know Brennan's raced there many, many times, a little quarter mile there. And that's where I got my start. I was 5 years old. I was actually racing the go-karts and then also racing dirt bikes, an event here or there, just doing something to be active, right? And I was fortunate to have a dad who was pretty out of control on anything with, a motor and wheels. And he let me try all kinds of new stuff. And then, a lot of what got me into it as well was my stepfather actually had raced up in the Northeast and had moved south from Massachusetts and chased the dream. And a lot of folks, I'm not sure the age group of your viewership, but, we, they used to be a super late model series called the Big Ten Series. They ran at the half mile at Concord Motorsports Park. So as a 5-year-old kid, you're running the quarter mile and you're like, oh man, the big dogs race right up the hill here at this half mile racetrack. And my stepfather raced there prior to, just having to do something different in his life. And between my dad, my stepdad, that's what got me into it in the go-kart level. And that's what we did. We did it for fun, did it as a hobby. But it really stuck out pretty quick that we didn't necessarily have the means to probably do it that way. And fortunately, by the time I was 10, 11 years old, I'd met a couple folks who eventually gave me an opportunity in some Bandoleros and then legend cars, which led to some super late model ranks. And that's really about where my career, if you will, I thought was going to stop at. I mean, I was fortunate to be winning races and doing it at that level. And at that point now I'm, 18, 19 years old, being able to somewhat make a living at it. But had no means to go any further than that. And then just by coincidence, just some timing events led to an opportunity to run a couple of truck races. And man, it's kind of a whirlwind, over the last 10 years, really, how I got to where I'm at today.
And Brennan, where did you first meet Daniel? Y'all were talking a little bit about your racing background, but where did you guys first race against each other?
I think I met Daniel for the first time at the summer shootout. I think it might have been at Concord because I did run the little quarter mile too, but I think it was at the summer shootout in like 05.
Yeah, I remember very vividly. Actually, I might remember a little better than you did. Maybe not.
Probably.
So Brennan was in what was called the pro class, and I was in one legend car class below that, which at that time was called the semi-pro. And I was driving, actually the first car owners I had, Tim Latiga, who's actually now a mechanic on Austin Hill's Xfinity car. Him and his wife Cheryl had a legend car team, and we had a guy helping us by the name of Josh. I cannot think of his last name. And but Brennan, somewhere along the lines, had a deal with a guy who owned the legend car team, and your deal went south. And next thing you know, you started driving for this Josh guy that was helping our team with our cars and setup. And that's kind of how, our groups kind of ended up just hanging out there for a little bit. And I remember you showed up to run his car at the summer shootout in the pro division. I can't remember the number. I remember it was white with like some fluorescent greenish color.
Yep. 117, baby.
You got crashed the first night. You should have won.
Yeah, I did.
I remember that.
Tyler Green, who ended up spotting for me. I don't know who he spots for in Xfinity now, but
bizarre, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and what's even crazier about that night, I don't know if you remember, but he wrecked me so hard that literally took out, because we were first and second coming to the checkered flag, and it wrecked the whole field. In 19th place, it was Jordan Anderson won the race. He was in 19th on the last lap.
What the heck?
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah,
by the way, we were talking like 15 plus years ago.
A long time ago. Yeah.
I love that.
Holy cow. What a story. And Jordan Anderson, you would talk about guys growing up together, racing together, making it together is another name right there. That's
Another one.
crazy.
It really is amazing when you start thinking about all the guys, and that's something too that I've had a lot of respect for Daniel over the years, and of course he knows this because we've talked about it, just on the way that he got there, and the same way that I've fought for my opportunities, Daniel's fought for his opportunities, and I know his challenges and the things he had to overcome to get there, to get these opportunities. So, and there's not a whole lot of guys in our sport that have really had to fight. I mean, I'll just say it, as hard as I feel like you, Daniel, and I have fought for some of these opportunities. So, there's a respect factor that I have for him that I don't have for a lot of many other guys, which I've been vocal about it, whether you know that or not, Daniel.
Well, I
Over the years,
appreciate
I've
that,
been
man.
vocal about it, but and then to see you have the success that you've had, it's been really, really awesome. And of course, we did have that great time catching up in Chicago, because lives get busy. But shoot, man, I remember your wife when she was racing the K&N cars at Turner, or I don't know if it was Turner, I think it was just Turner then, and I was trying to work my way and navigate through Turner and all that kind of stuff, and I watched her run a lot of races and watched her run ARCA and Canon and all that stuff, and to see you guys, and you have this family now, and you're still
Crazy.
racing, and it's cool, man, to see you guys, how you guys have supported each other over the years, and y'all's relationship, and yeah, man, it's just because I've known you guys for so long, so it's just it's been really cool to see. So
Yeah, that's special, man. It definitely. That's why I love doing stuff like this, because every time you bring up something, it's like reminiscing and just we get so in the trenches of today, right? Like how to be better today, how to be better tomorrow. We probably don't take enough time to look back and reflect on that stuff. And it's super good times. Like I said, I can see her helmets over here sitting in the corner, stuff that she was wearing when her and I met. We were both trying to figure out the grind that we're still trying to figure out every weekend. But it's been special to have her beside me throughout that entire journey, because a journey it for sure has been. And taking the conversation back to where it started, talking about Eric seeing me win the championship at Phoenix, that's what one of the questions I got after that was like, what was your favorite, what's your favorite racing memory, or what did you enjoy the most about this night? Like, everybody kept talking about this one night, and in all reality, I was like, I had someone very wise and has helped me a lot in my career tell me so many times getting to that point well before it happened that just keep remembering everything else that's going on. Yes, what happens next is important, but right now, this journey you're on, like the destination, whenever you get there, however you get there, wherever that is, that's all fine and good, but this journey is what it's all about. And I've enjoyed this journey. Having to do it the way I've had to do it, you and I both know it is exactly the grind that we talk about. But what else are we gonna do, right? Like, it's so rewarding having folks not only talk about what you've done in the past, but you really kind of do it on the merit in which you've done it in and the ground you stood, and it's been a special ride.
well, I've been able to see you. I remember one race in particular. This is an old one too, so I'm going way back. But ARCA race Berlin, and you're there watching and supporting, and Kinsey is driving. And I just think of that dynamic of how many times that you've watched her race and perform, and how many times it's been flipped, and she's been there for you and watched you perform. So what an interesting dynamic you guys have, and certainly just what a wild journey. And I agree, it's all about the journey, and you and I look at it very similar, so it's just cool getting to talk about those things. I know,
no doubt.
And I know you're with a new team from when you won the championship that we've all been discussing. This is your second year at Colleague Racing. And we've seen, some progression from the first year to the second year. How do you feel like your year's going? Where do you feel like you guys are at? And just talk maybe a little bit about, how you feel about the remaining part of the season.
Yeah, I think the recent kind of uptick in performance, whether it be, I'm just going to put it all in one category and call it performance in general. I mean, pit road to on track to decision making to our race cars. I feel like everyone at Colleague Racing is just taking that next step, at least a step to kind of give me a little bit more comfortable. You and I both know like how important it is to have something that you want to feel in a race car, especially growing up doing the way we did it. So we've kind of slowly but surely honed in on that for me. I think that's why you've seen a good bit of the uptick in performance. But I just look at kind of the energy around Matt Colleague and kind of how he runs his businesses. And when I took this deal on in 2022, I was like, man, you got an owner here who is young and so enthusiastic, and he's involved in so many other types of businesses that he is going to treat this no different. Like, he is going to succeed at this. And I think, that leads to exactly what we're talking about in our performance gain lately. Like, he's not going to let it fail. He's going to continue to push us, to push our people, and that's pushed me, right? Like, and I think, we still got some work to do. I think, man, it's good to go to the racetrack and know that we feel like now we are back in the hunt. Like, we feel like we're gonna have a shot when you unload every weekend. And I didn't feel that way the first year I was there with them, right? I mean, I came in with all the confidence in the world that you can have coming off of a championship, to like humbled faster, just like this roller coaster we live on in NASCAR, than you could think. And been slowly but surely trying to dig myself out of that. But yeah, I've had talk about my wife again, Kinsey, and a support group, and just the folks that have helped me along the way. It's maybe now understand that now, as we've gotten our race cars close to what I want them, as we've gotten myself mentally in a better place, that hey, the performance can still be there, and there's still big heights to be able to reach and grab. So yeah, I like where we're at currently. I like to know that there's a lot we can still clean up, that we're nowhere near meeting our full potential yet. But the good thing is there's light at the end of the tunnel on the performance side, on the getting the finishes we need as we get to a crucial part of the year where you got to be able to know there's more there and you can go get it.
How does like we've seen all the time, drivers have changed, come and gone, but Colleague always has felt from the outside as though it's like a very close-knit family type atmosphere. Everyone seems to kind of be on the same page more times than not. But so I guess I want to ask, how would you say Colleague Racing, how would Colleague Racing compare to other teams you've driven for in your career? Do you get that impression? Like,
Yeah.
Like it's a very close-knit group, or is it still just, it's a NASCAR team at its core? It's not too different than a lot of other teams.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's definitely different for sure. I think about, I remember whenever Colleague Racing first started, like I was their alliance partner. It was the years I was Xfinity racing up there in 17 and 18, I think it was, at RCR, and they became strictly as an alliance partner. So I got to see Chris Rice and kind of how he operated and whatnot within those meetings and debrief sessions we had. But I think I've tried to always respect, I've been a part of some incredibly, big organizations and some incredibly small single car organizations. And I feel like I try to respect them all for what they are. They are all so different. The leadership styles are different. How they communicate, whether it be through people or directly to you, from the top down, it's just so different. But I'll tell you, whatever Matt says goes to Chris, and Chris is the kind of the tipping point iceberg that lets everything else run downstream to us. And I really believe that because of that, there's not a lot lost in translation. I think what you see is what you get from that part of it. And they are trying to shake the game up though on how they interact with partners, how they bring them to the racetrack, how they want to make sure the experience they get is not a meet and greet. We're going to hang out here. You're going to sign some autographs and get out of here. Like, it's a full blown experience for our partners that come in. And heck, even what you see on my shirt with Circle, like they've been completely blown away by the experience they've received here at Colleague Racing. It's been fun to see them attached to it, but it starts our leadership. And it's been fun to see the excitement Colleague Racing has brought to the sport.
Awesome. Yeah. Love to see and hear teams innovating that. The at-track experience is so important these days, for sure.
Yep.
We've talked we talked about how year 2 at Colleague, it feels like you found your groove, especially the last few weeks. Like, I think 2 or 3 top 5s in a row now. But, I think a lot of fans look at your career, Daniel, and I can't speak for every fan in the world, but just broadly speaking, they look at your career and they immediately notice the consistency. No matter the team, very steady, very consistent. You won a championship in 2021, but that was also, I guess, your last win in a race. So, how challenging has it been, maybe from a mental perspective, either changing your approach or trying to keep doing the same thing you've been doing to try and get back to victory lane this last year and a half?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think, kind of growing the way I had to do it. I was building my own cars and having to fix them and get them to the track and come back and set them up and do all that stuff, right? So I think probably the earlier stages of my career when I was, like you said, still being consistently and getting really, really solid finishes and having chances to, get to the championship 4 and all this stuff, right? Like, there was probably a little bit of aggressiveness that I lacked because I knew, I don't know, just the value of keeping your car intact and all that stuff was still
Yeah.
internally kind of burned in me that I couldn't quite get myself over to, if I'm not the right fender here, I'm going after it. It's okay. It was probably a little bit there that I lacked. And honestly, I had to kind of forget all that to win the championship that night in Phoenix. But I look at just really in the grand scheme of things, like going and finish races and having the next opportunity the following week. When I was doing it as a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid, like legitimately I was going to eat ramen noodles that night or filet, depending on how my outcome of these last couple of laps were with these restarts. Right. So,
Wow.
I've had to kind of detach from that a little bit. I had a hard time with that at college racing the first year, I'd say, because I'd had so much consistency all those years that all of a sudden I had this newfound confidence, like I was talking about a minute ago, and I come in and I trying to get more than was there and was making a lot of mistakes, tearing a lot of race cars up, and that's something that I've tried to pride myself on not doing. And so I was thankful to get the shot to come back this year in 2023 and to know that we've been able to tap into that consistency to finish races, to kind of out discipline some folks in some different scenarios and kind of feel back to my old self, but know I can ramp that aggression up now when I need to. I can go kind of seize the moment when it's going to be in front of me. And we keep doing what we've been doing lately. Those moments will happen sooner than later.
I know Brennan and I have talked about free agency and the difficulties of finding that next opportunity. You've been with Colleague the last 2 years. Colleague's been in the news lately. I know with Justin Haley announcing he's going to Rick Ware next year. So I guess my question for you, I don't know what your deal with Colleague looks like, but looking ahead, we talked about the journey, the next destination, the next part of the journey. How does Colleague fit into that? And does the Justin Haley news or anything like that, does that affect your future plans in any way, shape, or form?
Oh gosh, man, I feel like anything that happens like that, there's always a domino effect throughout our sport, right? Like as big of the sport as we know it is and try to think that it is, and the pure amount of seats that are there is so small, right? So yeah, there's definitely a domino effect that does affect everybody. I don't at this point know it directly how it affects me, but I know there will be something. That's the fun part about the journey, right? You never know what's next.
Yeah.
I definitely don't know what that is. I can tell you that middle of 2021, prior to winning the championship, Matt Colley, Chris Rice had offered me a deal, and when I accepted that deal, it wasn't based off, hey, come drive for us for 1 year. It was based off, hey, we have a vision for 2024, 2025 down the road, and that vision is for sure what I bought into. And like I said, I don't know how Justin's deal is going to affect me directly, but I know it's good to be a part of an organization where there's opportunity, where there's for sure going to be growth. And when there's that in front of you and you're sitting there riding the horse still, that's a good place to be. So I'm hopeful that something works out. I don't necessarily have nothing, no ink on paper saying, hey, this is where you're racing at next year. But I know we're working hard to try to work it out.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a tough spot.
Good answer.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's. I mean, you're a pro at this as well, Brennan. You know what it takes, how difficult it is to race one season, but also still have that one eye on the future, on the next opportunity. If it's the same opportunity, that's a tough spot.
Yeah, I think as a driver, we're all fighting for like a piece of the pie, right? There's only so many seats. There's only so much pie, and we're all fighting for like a piece of it. And to Daniel's point, right? Like, you never know what's around the corner. You never know what's going to happen. You see guys move and other things move, and it's going to shake some stuff up, and you just hope it shakes some stuff up in a direction that works out better for you, so yeah, it's starting to get that time of the year. I think that announcement that did just happen was like kind of like one of the first dominoes. So we'll see what happens with the rest of the dominoes, and hopefully we all end up in a place where we're happy and can go do what we love to do. So I like this time of the year can be like dreadful for drivers, but sometimes it can be really exciting too, depending on what position you're in. So I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what happens over the next couple of months for me and for Daniel and other people that are in the sport too. It's going to be, I think this silly season is going to be an interesting one.
I agree. I think, kind of not sure. I don't want to take over this where your segue is your next part, but like there's so much involved within what happens in 24, right? We're talking about TV contracts. We're
Yeah.
talking about the charter agreements. We're talking about, I feel like, the nod of, hey, I got the charter, and the value of that is going just out of the roof now. Of right, there's only so many of them, and I think that's a whole nother. You could talk for hours on that, but here nor there, it's just there's so much going on right now that I agree. This particular silly season, I hate calling it that. This particular silly season is about to really get turned upside down, I do believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's not. It's like more of a crazy season than it's not.
It is.
Nothing silly about it. It's just crazy,
Yeah.
but we call it silly
bizarre.
season.
Bizarre.
It is.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Brennan has any final questions. My final question for you, Daniel, I guess, again, looking ahead, but, looking ahead to the end of this season with the playoffs around the corner, the end of the regular season around the corner, I guess what more do you need? Does your team need, or what are you guys looking to do to take that next step and be and potentially be championship contenders this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be truthful with you. About 7 weeks ago, I felt like we needed to be able to contend, have an average running position inside the top 5 to 6. I feel like we're about 1 or 2 spots away, average running position throughout these races, to be a serious contender each and every week. Like, and the next part of that's leading laps and like I said, increasing that average running position. You can do that. It's incredible how much your total point days, how much that increases, how much your stage finishes and your final point gain on the day, where it ends up at. There's no bigger precedence than winning, our own winning now than ever. But we for sure went the right direction on getting ourselves closer to that. And man, I don't know. I can't help but think back to 2017, and I think we were 8th or 9th all year in points, and we got some stuff figured out between myself and the race cars. Next thing you know, we're racing for a championship at Homestead, with it very much so lingering in front of us as the favorite to win this thing, and we have a dead battery to take us out of it. So losing one that way, winning one the way we won it in 21. But I get some sense of I don't know, just some certain sense of confidence in knowing I've been on both sides of it, and knowing this race team is just as capable of any of those particular situations, and look forward to seeing what this 11 group can do as we continue on down into the regular season and into the postseason.
Well, Daniel, we wish you the best of luck, man. I know I'm going to be out there on track with you at the same time, but we're pulling for you, and we're thankful that you came on and got to chat with us for a little bit. I thought, man, it was a great conversation.
Yeah, likewise, man. As well as I do, I'm always pulling for you. I know not specifically the grind and what you're trying to do at this level, but we've all had to be a part of that grind growing up. So best luck to you in crazy season, silly season, whatever it is.
Crazy silly
season. Think about everybody. Yeah, crazy silly season. Hopefully we all have a chair when the music stops, and we're pulling for you as well, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome stuff. Thanks for joining us, Daniel. Appreciate you being on.
Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Huge thank you to Daniel Hemrick for joining the show. That was awesome. It was awesome to hear you guys at the beginning sort of reminisce a bit about your early racing years. That's pretty cool. I do think it's crazy how so many drivers from, 10, 15 years ago, like I think back to the K&N East Series in like 2012. You look at that field and it was stacked. You look at like who was in the K&N field in 2012, and it was, I don't remember off the top of my head, it was like Bubba, it was Blaney, it was, I think, Chase Elliott, maybe it was Suarez, might have even been in that field. I don't remember, but it was stacked. All these guys that made it to Cup, many of them have won races and even championships. So it's great to see so many of you guys make it so far along in your NASCAR career, and the journey is just beginning. So that's great. Brennan, it's time now for one of my favorite segments each week. It's the fan question segment. We don't have a fancy name for it, but we've got a pretty good question this week that I think is very open-ended and will allow for us to sort of name drop some iconic drivers and even more iconic NASCAR paint schemes. So,
all right,
you ready for this?
I'm game. I'm ready. Hit me with it.
So this question, which was posted underneath our most recent Power Hour podcast episode on YouTube, comes from dit.tot8303. I think I'm saying that correctly. Their question is, I have a question for the next episode. What is yours, Brennan's, and Eric's favorite ugly paint scheme? It's one of my favorite questions to ask NASCAR fans. Keep up the great work on this show. Well, thank you, dit.tot. So what is an ugly paint scheme, Brennan, that you kind of like? Like, it's like almost like your guilty pleasure paint scheme that, you you still
I mean, I
appreciate.
know it's hard, but like when you first read the question, like the first thing that I was thinking of that just like hit me was the Travis Pastrana
Oh yeah.
Roush 60 Xfinity car where it was like blue and pink and like crazy and checkered and like weird like stuff on
Yeah.
the nose. Like that car like it looked so crazy. Like it didn't look like a NASCAR car, but it but it still was cool. Like it was like almost like a rally type style paint scheme,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
on a Xfinity car. And I always thought that car looked really cool, but also looked really weird. So like it was like one of those things where it's like, yeah, I guess it is kind of like a guilty pleasure type style car because like man, it's really cool, but also like out of place at the same time. But I like it, you know?
Yeah, out of place, unorthodox, like a fish out of
Yeah,
water. I would agree, but that was kind of that was kind of Travis Pastrana too at the time.
it was. It was.
Yeah, so I think it actually works when you think of it from that level. So I'm with you there. That's a good kind of ugly paint scheme that still has some redeeming qualities about it. I was looking around. I did some googling when I saw this question because I wanted to make sure I left no stone unturned. One paint scheme that I think gets a lot of hate was Kevin Harvick's flannel bush light car he drove a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
It was like
I know
dark
what you mean
red
now.
and navy blue, and he does all these different bush light variants. Some have been worse, like the millennial pink car, the Gen X or Gen Z, whatever it was. Car was terrible. Actually, one of those was kind of cool. There was one of the cars, not the pink one. He did one that was like black and green. It was actually kind of cool. But anyway, Harvick Bush Light, they have wacky paint schemes every month, it seems like. But the flannel car, I think a
I
lot
had
of
to
people.
look it up.
Yeah, a lot of people trash that scheme. It's not amazing. I don't want to put it in my like top 10 or even maybe not even for that whole season, but I liked it. I kind of liked it. It was different, like flannel pattern on a cup car, on a race car. It is
Oh
unique.
man.
It worked better than people give it credit for. That's just my take.
That's a goofy one.
It's
But it's cool. I mean,
not for
it's
everyone.
cool.
Do you hate it?
No,
You
he's had a lot of goofy ones. No, what was there was the car where he had the millennial phrases on it,
Yeah,
right?
that
Isn't
wasn't
that what
great.
it was? And it was like pink and green or something.
Yeah, it was
That car
terrible. It was awful.
that car was yeah, it was bad.
Another
He's had
one.
a couple goofy ones.
Another one I wanted to mention though, as a Matt Kenseth fan, I just was reminded of it was his. I want to say it was 2011, might have been 2012, but I think 2011 he drove a Kroger scheme at I want to say Michigan over the summer, and it was like this paint scheme only ran one race, I'm pretty sure, and it was like yellow and blue with like flames going down the side and like a red 17. So like you think Kroger, you think blue and white, you think kind of like
Yeah.
what Ricky Stenhouse does these days, and it's like that's Kroger.
Yeah.
This was yellow, blue, and red. Not a lot of cohesion there, but I loved that. I remember it was in 8th grade, I think at the time, 7th or 8th grade. And in my history class, we had to like, I'm holding up a notebook right now. We had like, spiral notebooks. And for one of our assignments was like, our teacher wanted us to like decorate the front of our notebooks with like American things. It was a U.S. history class, so like put like like the state capitol, Statue of Liberty, whatever. Like they wanted you to put American-y things on the front of your notebook. And so I went home and printed out a picture of that car because I thought that car was so cool. And how much more American can you get? It's NASCAR. It's I don't know if Kroger's an
Grocery
American
shopping.
company. Yeah,
It's
grocery shopping. So I thought I'm gonna put this Kroger abomination on my notebook. I think I put a couple other
America.
things too, but I thought that works, and I'm pretty sure I passed that assignment. But yeah, I had on my notebook for like 7th or 8th grade U.S. history this Matt Kenseth Kroger thing. I liked it. I even bought the small. I had a 164 diecast of it. I loved it so much. I need to find that thing. I hope it's in like a drawer somewhere because it's the rare piece of history.
It's the one-off classic Kroger Kenseth car.
Yep.
How can you not have it?
Absolutely. Great question though. That was a lot of fun. This is a great episode, Brennan. Folks listening,
Yeah.
before you click away, before you turn this off, be sure to leave a question. Either tweet it at us. You can tweet at me at Eric Estepp 17. Brennan, what's your Twitter handle? Is it just at Brennan Poole?
Yeah, it's just Brennan Poole.
Yeah.
Ask us something crazy, guys.
Yeah, give us something nuts.
Throw us a one for a loop. what's your favorite spicy noodle pack? You know, like something crazy.
That's pretty unusual. You can also leave a YouTube comment under this video or any of the other videos on this show. Even on one of my other videos, if you say that it's for Power Hour, I'll find it and I will forward it along to Brennan and we will answer it potentially. If it's a little too crazy or if it's not crazy enough, we may not answer it in the next episode, but there's a good chance we will. Brennan, final thoughts. This was a good time. Appreciate Daniel being on. I know, good buddy of yours. This was a blast. I had a good time with this one.
No, this was great. A lot of great conversation, a lot of laughs, a lot of changing the name of silly season to crazy season, even though it's silly crazy season now, I think, according to Daniel. So we'll leave you guys with that.
Awesome stuff. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Out of the Groove Power Hour. We will see you next time.